Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I had the great opportunity to have private conversation with a couple of people that follows us here on uh, and from last week's class, and I was asked to explain in greater depth what I am trying to say because sometimes I tend to be quick and fast and I make assumptions that people are on the same page and they're getting what I'm saying. This is probably why a lot of time I pause the class to ask if you have any questions because I want your input. I want to clarify any sticking point for you, any comments, any question that you may have so that I can clarify because what we're talking about in terms of the giving and the receiving is so advanced and it requires such incredible adult uh, accountability and responsibility that if you blink, you're going to miss it. So I'm going to go over that again in greater details. And I'm going to try to go slow, step by step, to try to explain the intricacies so that I will expand it to allow more understanding and insight to come through. According to the Kabbalah, let's start at the beginning. According to the Kabbalah, in the beginning, there existed an infinite desire to give and nothing else. But that desire to give was not self-aware because it was everywhere. In order for you to be self-aware, there has to be a mirror, a reflection to give you a sense that you exist. So to emancipate and evolve into self-awareness, that desire to give created a place where it manifested a mirror, an invert, an infinite desire to receive. Now, I have to preface this by saying that this is before time and space existed. So the universe, none of that stuff existed up to that point. And so for a moment there, the receiver just had to think for an instant about anything. And the giver instantaneously manifested it. And this went on for a while where the receiver wished for something and the wish was instantaneously fulfilled. Not tomorrow, not the next day, not on a list, not a bucket list, it just instantaneously it's manifested. Now, what the giver was receiving back from the receiver was gratitude. For the infinity loop to be closed and for the exchange to be sustainable, the receiver was grateful for the gift because to know for no reason you just wish for something and the giver simply bless you with the grace and with the benefit of your wish. And all you have to do back in return is to be grateful for this incredible gift that you receive. So, but what happened over a period is that the receiver began to be less grateful. It's very easy to do even for all of us. Even if you claim you're in gratitude all the time, no one is in gratitude all the time. there was a point where gratitude stopped and you begin to be entitled, particularly when every wish you have are getting fulfilled. This is the rich child syndrome, the spoiled brat, where everything, your wish is getting fulfilled and you're getting more and more entitled. I want this, I want that, I want, and I want, and as your wish are getting fulfilled, you want more. But the opposite of the seesaw of entitlement is shame and undeservedness. And that begin to build up. It's the same relationship that may exist between superiority and inferiority complex. They're in a seesaw relationship. So the bottom line is that the shame became so big and so immense for the receiver, the more entitled he became, that deep internally in his inside, he became more and more shameful that he was getting all the stuff for free, for nothing, because he forgot he didn't understand the currency that he was paying back to the giver was gratitude. He didn't see it, he forgot it. And so what happened is that at some point, the shame became so big that the receiver said, no more, no, I don't want any more gift. No, because now I want to give something back to you. It's too much. It's like when somebody is gifting you something and you get to a point, all of us have been there. I know I have, where you said, no, I don't want any more gift from you. No, this is too much. That's shame. And when that happened, particularly in this primordial state, the infinite nature of the receiver collapsed as a mirror of the giver. It collapsed into a point that was no bigger than the tip of my finger. And it was actually a terrifying thing for the receiver, because whereas before it was infinite and it was a perfect mirror for infinity, all of a sudden it is a dot. And because of this, the receiver realized that being that dot was so uncomfortable that it called out back to the giver and said, I made a mistake. Come back to me. I made a mistake. Come back to me. Restore everything the way it was. I want everything to be restored the way they were. I want my gifts back. I'm saying yes now. But it was too late. For the giver, if you want to call the giver God, or the principle we call the cornucopia, or the horn of plenty in the Indian tradition, it's goddess Lakshmi. In medieval time, they used to call her Fortuna, goddess Fortuna, good fortune. It's the source where all gifts come from. The giver did not just give money. And the same is true for Lakshmi. I don't want you to think of, a lot of people think of Lakshmi as the goddess of good fortune. She gives gold and money. It's not her. This is only one aspect of 1,008 aspects that she has, because she gives health, she gives wellness, she gives prosperity, she gives joy, she gives happiness, she gives effortlessness, she gives everything, knowledge, she gives everything. And even life. She's the source of all things. That giver is the source of all things. Whatever name you want to give it, whether you want to call it Kuan Yin, you want to call it giver, you want to call it God, it doesn't matter. When the giver realized that the receiver wanted to restore everything back, the giver realized something very true. I can fulfill every wish that the receiver has instantaneously. And I have been doing this for many, many eons. But the one wish that I cannot fulfill, I cannot remove his shame and his undeservedness, his desire to feel that the gifts are too much. I have to earn the gifts. I have to work hard now, or I have to give you something back. Or I have to give you something of equal value. And so it came back and touched the receiver again. But at that point, it exploded it out in a gigantic spiritual detonation, manifesting in an instant in speeds and acceleration and explosive power that we cannot comprehend. Time, space, our entire universe in an instant, in a snap, like this. And all of a sudden, everything was spreading out, exploding. The early particles that exist in the quantum fields, all the particles that the Hadron accelerators were trying to discover or recreate, all of them manifested in an instant. And I want you to understand that you and I, and for that matter, planets, everything else that physically exists in this universe, were component. We are nothing more but the building block that existed in the original receiver. The infinite nature of the receiver. And so, and we know that the universe is expanding. There's a force that's actually pushing everything apart from each other. It's expanding out. And I want you to understand what I'm trying to say here. Before that, there was no time and space. Time and space and the entire universe was created as a stage, a theater, or an experiment to allow the fragments that you and I are the manifestation of the receiver, to learn to express both the desire to give and the desire to receive. And we have to figure out a way to balance both things out, the desire to give and the desire to receive. And I want to also add here something else. In order for that stage to be created in a way that will allow a real effort from the part of the fragment of the receiver that you and I are, in order for it to be a real effort that we overcome to allow the blessings that the actual desire to give is trying to give us, there had to be a resistance, an energy system created to test us to the pedal, to make things difficult for us so that we can overcome. To the degree that our shame is, it's to the degree that the resistance, that resisting force, will create obstacle for us to overcome. And that system is what the Kabbalah calls Satan. It's not a horned being with a tail and a pitchfork. I want you to understand this because this is very important. When the universe was created, that force was inside of it already. It's not a fallen angel. It's a resisting energy system designed to test us so that we can shave and erode and remove the shame and purge the shame out of ourselves so that we can allow, let's say, for example, your challenge right now is health related, or it's financial or money related, whichever the case may be, doesn't matter. So as you're overcoming an obstacles after obstacle after obstacles, as you're overcoming it, and you're overcoming one challenge after another, you try to overcome and do this and this doctor, do this treatment, this, that, or the other, financially get this new job, try to figure out a way around, try to get help by doing this stuff, and that's financial stuff, and so on and so forth. As you're doing all of this, and how difficult it is to do, etc., you are now dealing with the resistance. And that resistance is created to test you. And beyond the test now comes in, because already, although let's say the challenge is financial, the challenge is health, your perfect health and you being completely wealthy is a gift that already exists in the universe that the giver is trying to give you. And the reason you're not accepting it, it's because fundamentally from the way the universe was created, you have shame and undeservedness. And in order for the undeservedness to be removed, Satan has to test you. The energy system will create one obstacle after another obstacle to test you, so that you can remove your undeservedness, so that when you finally get on top of the mountain and you receive it, you will accept it. Because I earn it, I struggle for it. Whereas before, the giver and the receiver was getting it for free, it didn't want to accept it because it was too easy. Any questions, any comments about this before I move on?
I know that what was sort of just left my mind. Original sin is a different concept, but this almost sounds like something that is inborn in us, somewhat similar to that original sin concept, is it?
Yes, the shame is basically the reason that the physical universe exists. It's the basic operating system. In PC, it's the MS-DOS. It's the background operating system. It exists everywhere. And so does Satan as well. Mm-hmm. As a part of it, because without it, there is no resistance. Mm-hmm. No shame can be removed. Okay? So it's not an original sin. Because the issue is not, it's not a sin that you committed. Mm. It's not something that you did that was wrong. There's nothing wrong that happened. It's an emancipated feeling. It's not understanding, not remaining in gratitude long enough. Uh-huh. And because the receiver did not remain in gratitude from the gift that it was receiving from the giver, that got toxified over time into shame and undeservedness.
So we wouldn't be removing shame without Satan.
Okay.
I mean, the shame exists independently of Satan, but we need to be challenged and tested to be repeatedly reminded that the shame is there. Is that the idea?
It's not even the shame is there. The shame exists in you. Satan is giving you opportunity and creating challenges to help you shave it off.
I see. Thank you.
And I have biblical passages. Lydia reminded me of this in the morning, and I went back and I read it, and it's really very powerful. So in Job chapter 1 verse 6, it says here, and now there was a day when the Son of God, the Son of God means angel, by the way, when the Bible says the Son of God. I will translate it as an angel. And now there was a day when the angel came to represent themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, from where have you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and says, does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put an edge around him, his house, and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hand. His possession have received as increase in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. So what basically Satan is doing there, Satan is challenging God. Satan has a favorite, God has a favorite, which is Job, and he's not only a pious and a good man, but financially, family-wise, and in any other ways, he's blessed. But God there represents the giver. The giver gave that being everything. But what Satan is saying, does Job fears you for no reason? You've blessed him with everything. I am the accuser or the adversary. I am now saying to you, Lord, if you take everything, all the gifts away from you, he will curse your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hand. And only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Basically, God said to him, I'm giving you, you're the accuser, you're the adversary. You're going to test this man's to see if he has any shame and undeservedness. I'm giving you now the opportunity to take everything away from him. And so the next part, Satan goes in and removes from Job. I'm not going to read the rest of the book, but he goes out and literally he loses everything. His home, his family, everything that he has, he lost it. And then there's a passage in there I want to read you. And this is where Job, after all of the tribulation and everything that happened, he lost everything that there is. He became homeless, destitute. Then Job rose and tore his robe and shaved his head and fell onto the ground and worshiped. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be in the name of the Lord. He was still blessing God even after he lost. He passed the test. I wanted to read you that biblical passage in reference to what we're talking about, giving and receiving, and the energy called Satan, because in that passage, it is actually named Satan. Exactly. And you have to understand, I was sharing in class this morning, Satan is not the same being as Lucifer, nor Samael, the angel of death. They're the same class of being, but they play completely different role. They're not the same thing. Lucifer is a fallen angel. Samael is also a fallen angel. But Satan is an energy system. It's so through the test that Job got put through, losing everything, etc., being put down to the ground, he passed a greater spiritual test, which is any shame that he may have had, any undeservedness, anything, because he remained still pious and still connected to God, worshiping the name of God. God elevated him into something else, and he elevated himself because he overcame the test of Satan. Any questions, any comments? this is a fine point, but it's an important point in the story, because to a degree or another, none of us want to be Job. We don't want to lose. Nobody is going to play that game of losing everything. This is not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say, I'm using that extreme example to illustrate this idea being between a giver that's giving everything and that energy system that's the resistance. And how that energy system, in this instance, literally accused God and Job that if everything is taken away, Job will reject you. He will curse your face. He will reject you. But this is not what happened. This is not what happened. Job's inner quality showed up. His higher spiritual quality shows up. That he was a man of such deep faith and spiritual character that the loss of everything that was mundane of the earth did not deter him. Even the loss of his family, his children, his wife, none of that deterred him. And he remained faithful. And he remained connected to God, and he continued to bless the name of God. He passed the test. Now, it doesn't have to be that extreme for us, but I wanted you to understand that when you're going through your spiritual, physical, emotional challenges, in whatever form that they may take, because that energy system is so bright and so super. Do not underestimate it. It is so bright and so intelligent. It's everywhere. There's nowhere that it is not. I remember the old people, the great grandparents used to say all the time, don't say too much out loud because you don't know what's listening. What they were talking about is Satan. Because when you start bragging about everything that you have and blah, 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 and all that, Satan will say, you're connected to this. I'm going to resist you in this. Or in other words, Satan is saying, trying to find out all the time, is there underservedness there or is there gratitude? Because ultimately it's the gratitude that's the healer. Now, the restitution of what happened to Job, the story is the way the biblical story is, it's in the afterlife that he got everything that he wanted. But God does not want us to suffer. And ultimately, Satan does not want you to suffer. Satan is there to play a role. And the role that he's playing, he resists. He creates tests and obstacles. So that when you overcome, when you get on top of the obstacle, or on top of the hurdle, you can begin to feel, I overcame this. Therefore, I deserve the glory. I deserve the joy. I deserve what the universe is giving me. Because I went through hell. Every time you say, I went through hell and back, and look at me now, blah, blah, blah. Satan tested you. Without him, there would be no hell for you to be tested in. And therefore, the knowledge base, the resolve, the information, the way you're processing the victory that you have is completely different than if you didn't have it. It's completely different. I'm not trying to glorify the test. I'm just stating the facts. Now, having said all of this, I can tell you that for me, and I've shared with you that story about my abuse. And when my dad, we talked about this a couple of classes now, when my dad tried to kill my mother in front of me when I was 4 years old, and how that situation, because my dad was the provider and the giver, like the paternal father, like the giver of the world, of my world. And when I saw what he almost did to my mom, I cut it off. From my 4-year-old mind, I thought that this man and the role that he's playing as the giver is toxic. And I, as a receiver, dependent on him. I will never let this happen to me again. I don't want to be dependent on him or anybody. and therefore I will become self-sufficient. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but this is what articulated in my head. And I remember from that moment on, I began to give, because what I did is that at that moment, because of the trauma, I severed, like how you would amputate a leg. I tried to sever my desire to receive from my father out. What I didn't know at the time is that when you severed, it was so traumatic for me. When you severed anything like that, you don't just sever your connection to your father, and your father being the giver and you being the receiver. You severed all 108 aspects, or all everything that's connected to giving. Because when God gives, God doesn't just give money. God gives health. God gives joy. God gives even life. God gives everything. And when you try to sever one aspect, you typically block all 108 aspects. Knowledge, all kinds of things that God is trying to give. You block all of them out. It took me up to this point from 4 years old, about a month ago, for me to begin to realize the mistake. It's not that I didn't know that I had difficulty receiving, whether it was a gift, whether it was sometimes a compliment. It's not that I didn't know this, I knew this, but not like this. Not to the point of realize it wasn't just I was ashamed of receiving, or I felt uncomfortable. It was an amputation or an attempt at amputation. Of course, you cannot amputate this out because we are made of both, but it's a complete denial of that aspect of myself, a complete repression of it. And as a solution to that, as a way to overcome and to rebalance myself out, because I'm realizing now, okay, talking about tests, from 4 years old to the present, I have not realized that this was a problem. And everything that I have faced, all the challenges I've faced since even before COVID until now, are all connected for me not having the vessel or the capacity to receive correctly. As the challenges are getting more and more difficult globally for all of us have to become clean in front of the throne of room of God. We have to come clean, which means we have to be completely balanced. And because there was a huge imbalance in me, overabundance of giving, and trying not to receive and dodge myself out of receiving over and over again, not consciously, because at this point, because of the trauma, it's a gigantic complex. It has its own zip code, it has its own country, it has its own autonomy, it's doing its own thing. It's a saboteur. It's an internal saboteur. So it's to now go back and realize this is a problem. And the length of time from 4 years old to the present that it took me to actually know this, that's because of the amount of shame that I was storing. And all the difficulty, all the obstacle, all the stuff that I went through. I mean, I went through so many difficulties for the past 5 years, emotional, financial, so many difficulties. As I went through all of them, that's Satan creating opportunity for me to overcome. I don't see them as just as tests. They're actually opportunity for me to overcome. Because guess what? In my true body, the receiver and the giver are in perfect balance. They are not amputated. The giver is trying to give to me. I am the one, because of the trauma of the experience, that has pushed this out. That was a survival and coping mechanism. At the time, it was the right thing to do to survive. Because my parents were still in a marriage. I mean, they divorced 2 years later, but they were still in a marriage, and this man was still in my life. I had to figure out a way to survive. But after doing it for 2 years, I didn't have an off ramp. And when you do things like this, and when you're very young, it becomes so profoundly ingrained in your subconscious mind that your subconscious mind takes it over. And so I am now at a point where I am trying to rectify this false belief, this incorrect pattern, this incorrect model. I'm at a point where I am trying to go back now and say to myself, no, this was wrong. And the way I'm doing this is that, and thank God for Kuan Yin, who kept coming to me to try to give me insight into this, because I didn't know how to do it. Because when I went in meditation, I thought, okay, I try to impute this out. I listen to my body all the time. I went into the morphogenic listening, and I tried to listen to find where the receiver was in me. I couldn't find it. 2 days, I'm in meditation, I couldn't find it. On the third day, I got inspired by Kuan Yin. I heard Kuan Yin just simply said to me, ask for forgiveness. And I thought to myself, okay, please forgive me, I love you, and I let go. I'm saying this all the time anyway. I'm saying, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me, no. Ask the receiver that you try to remove from yourself, ask it for forgiveness for having done something so foolish, to try to disconnect you to basically a raw force of nature that is necessary for balanced living. And I began to say the Ho'oponopono to it. And as I did this, after a half hour of just repeating the Ho'oponopono, whereas before I felt nothing, suddenly, the very bottom of my belly, I begin to feel a sensation there, a discomfort, something. And I knew I had touched down finally to connect to my receiver. Now, the next day, Kuan Yin again guided me by saying to me, great, you are asking that part of you to forgive you for having done something so foolish. Now you need to forgive yourself. You're asking the receiver for forgiveness. Now you need to forgive yourself as well for doing something so dumb. And you need to also accept yourself for being so imperfect and so human. And this is where the beginning of my true healing started. Any questions, any comments?
At that point, was it important then for you to surrender to Source, to God, to the giver, having asked for forgiveness of self and of the receiver? Or was that enough that you asked forgiveness? Was it still lingering, I guess is my question.
Janice, is still a work in progress.
Ah.
I've done this for years.
Wow. So it's
I'm still healing it.
They're layers then
I'm
that
still healing it. I'm still healing it. I've done this since I was 4 years old. Okay, and I'm still learning to connect, because here's the other part that Kuan Yin said to me that was kind of shocking, revelatory. Just shocking is not the word, revelatory. She kept saying to me, for what purpose that you were born and what you want to do with Gaia, you may have at the moment create bypass to receive God, a gift from the giver, from God. But as long as that incorrect wiring is there, you cannot manifest the vessel to hold Gaiaville and ground it and manifest it on earth, because that part exists in the receiver.
Hmm.
That's why your work cannot touch down anywhere. There are certain people that follow you, but you are an unknown, invisible gift. It's because you have not created the vessel for it.
for you to create the vessel, you have to continue to dig deeper into the
Yes.
reason for your truncating or excising of the receiver from your being. I was hoping, I guess, that you could say, okay, I've done this work, I've gone as far as I know how to go. Can you then just release it to God and say, I surrender it, take it from me?
Okay, what's the best way to put this? Yes, I've done something kind of like that, but it doesn't mean that the work of still grounding the receiver is over. The same way, what is the word? That manifestation and creation is endless. It's the same way that things exist in multiple layers.
Mm.
So yes, I've done that. And I'm going to touch upon a few more points. The reason I'm giving, and I was giving and giving and giving compulsively, giving became a way for me to control. Because as long as I'm giving to people, it allowed me to feel a sense of control. And one of the other reasons I try to remove the receiver away from me, it's because there was a perception in my young spiritual evolving mind that to desire something for myself is unholy and is also not saintly. And therefore it's not a virtue. So push it away. Now, to go back to what you were asking me, I'm still connecting to the receiver and trying to ground a bigger vessel. In other words, every time I desire, let's say, to have the money that's necessary to create the whole city of Gaiaville, the whole village, to have all of this stuff, there's a part of me, the saboteur, the inner saboteur, that kept saying, you don't deserve it. You cannot ground it.
Mm.
Do you understand? It's deep inside. It's not conscious. Because I cut that part out. I remember telling you a story about that I met a man to a friend that I thought was an alien, because when we were talking, he was deeply spiritual. He was actually staying at a friend's Airbnb, and he was really, really deeply spiritual. He was by himself. He had no friends, whatever. But he was working on a couple of projects, and he kept saying, and I said, would you have the money to create? Oh, money, it's easy. It's not a problem. It's very easy, very easy. This one project he was working on, he needed $500,000 in 2 weeks. Not that he had it. This is somebody who has the vessel. He's not afraid to ask the universe for what he wants. He has removed shame about receiving.
That's a hard one. How do you restore deservedness?
Again, because of the imputation or attempt at imputation that I did, I have to keep going back and ask for forgiveness for having attempted this
Okay.
over and over again. I have to keep, I do it every day now. I go in, I find where the receiver is in my body because I'm beginning to feel it now, and I keep asking that part of me to forgive me for the foolish thing I attempted to do. And I also am not asking myself for forgiveness for erroneously thinking that you can exist without having a desire to receive.
Mm.
Again, this is quite advanced and sophisticated concept, because you would think that let me put it to you this way: none of the ascended masters that can manifest, create miracle and manifest this, that, or the other like that, they all are connected to they have the vessel. When Gandalf was standing on the bridge of Khazad-dûm and said, "You shall not pass," and he stroked that staff, and the bridge collapsed, and the demon could not go through. He was completely connected to his vessel, his ability to desire something and call it down. This is the second Sephiroth. This is Hakma, right before Bina. The staff is the measure of God. It's the ability to, and because a rod, there is no straight line in the universe. The rod turns into a circle, because if I were to shoot an arrow and there is no gravity, you would end up, the arrow I shoot in front of you would end up hitting me in the back with a gigantic circumference. And when a magician in all ancient history and future history strike this staff down with an intention, it's called the measure of God. They are manifesting an idea. And the circle that they create is the desire to receive this blessing or the miracle that they are trying to create. And it's typically something very simple. Let there be light, God said at the beginning. With the same process. Or in the case of Gandalf, you shall not pass. Or when Moses was in front of the Dead Sea, give us safe passage. How the universe does it is not relevant. Let the universe and God figure it out. You don't go there, think about all the detail. It has to happen this way. There will be angel that will carry everybody across, or we will, Scotty will disintegrate us and zap us on the other side. You simply, the desire is there. And if your vessel, if you're connected to your desire to receive, and you're really connected to it, and you say, God, bless me with this, give me safe passage, it will be given instantaneously. And for you to do this, your desire to receive has to have no shame in it. Is that making sense, Janice?
Oh gosh, yes, thank you.
And whatever the challenge is, this is where we are, whether it's health, money, love, whatever, this is where we are. We're all on this country, and the resistance is the test that the Satan keep putting in front of us. You think you remove the test by moving over this hurdle? No, you didn't figure it out completely. You remove some of it, but not all of it. And here is another test, here is another test, and that kind of thing. And ultimately, God had already given it to you. It's your shame. This is true for all of us. It's our shame that's blocking the blessings. The 1008 aspect of God, we're trying to gift us everything we want. It's all around us. It's in us. It's in ourselves. It's permeating to us. But we're the one that see no evil. We are. We see. We hear. And the shame is blocking us. And our capacity to hold the blessing is blocked by a vast, thick wall of shame. And it is, and all of the blockages that are being created by Satan are there to try to ultimately help you. When we are going through the tests and the difficulties, we don't see it this way. We say, why me? Why is this so hard? Why is this so complicated? Why am the same thing keep happening over and over again? Every time I think I'll overcome this, it comes in a different ways. Blah, 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 blah. It's your shame. It's your underservedness. So what I'm trying to address for me is fundamentally because I'd done something completely crazy. And I don't think it's completely crazy for all of us who are healers or givers, because to a degree or another, you may not be as extreme as I was, but to all of us who are healers, to a degree or another, we're doing the same thing. We think receiving and desiring things for ourselves is, although I'm desiring Gaiaville ultimately for humanity, but it has to go through me, because I am the anchor. And for the 144,000 that are going to help to ground and help guide humanity to go to the new earth, we all have to create the receiving vessel, the deservedness and the receiving vessel that's needed, so that we can create the doorway through which the safe passage can be found. Any questions, any comments?
I'm sorry, Pierre, just one quick question. Along with the forgiveness, along with ferreting out different layers and aspects that we are otherwise blinded to, continually searching for the reasons for the programming of the false programming of that you've spoken about. So forgiveness is on recognition key. Wouldn't gratitude also be a key element, because that was what was originally the
absolutely, you're speaking golden words right there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. If you can bring gratitude in your life, it will move mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When the tests come, be grateful that you're alive. Be grateful for everything that you have. Be great, and it simply will change the dynamics. There's a passage in the Bible that says, "Wash me with hyssop so that I can be clean." It's putting hyssop on your problem. It will wash everything away. This is a profound thing you just said, Jonas. Now I'm going to add to this one additional thing. And Janice, this is addressed for you because you were asking if you surrendered, would it be? So I didn't go even to the process of surrendering because I'm still trying to understand, because right now energetically, I don't know what a proper receiving vessel looks like for me. Mm. How can I surrender it when I don't even know what it feels like? Right? So I'm in the process of trying to feel energetically. I know what giving is because I've been doing compulsively for a long time. But what does receiving actually feels like to me? I don't know it. And I'm exploring it. I'm knowing it more and more and more and more and more and more. And as I'm beginning to go back between those two desires, and multiple things can be true at the same time, one does not negate the other. It occurred to me, particularly in connection to Kuan Yin and the Kuan Yin Heart Sutra, where she said, form is empty and emptiness is form, that the two things merge into each other, that at the roots of everything, you begin to realize there is nothing. There's this line in the metrics when Neo goes to the oracle and first time, and there's a little boy there, shaved head, that's bending spoons. And then Neo went to sit next to him, trying to bend the spoon as well. And then the kid said to him, do not try to bend the spoon with a British accent. Do not, I can't do a British accent, so I'm not going to try. Do not try to bend the spoon, but realize that there is no spoon. Okay? So in that context, as I'm thinking about the Heart Sutra, because once you pack, okay, I'm restoring the balance between giving and receiving because that part of me is missing. As I'm doing this, because I'm desiring to receive balance, how do I create the balance, the middle line, this, I'm trying to figure out how to create the dynamics. And I am reminded by Kuan Yin what would happen if there are no desires. What state would you be in if you were completely balanced and at rest? And I can tell you for a day and a half, I went into bliss of existing in effortlessness, where there were no desires. No desire to give, no desire to receive. Every time I tried to do something, like where's my desire to receive that? I kept hearing, it is all done. It is all done. It doesn't mean that the work that I'm doing is over. It means that my consciousness shifted somewhere else in a part of my body where the resolution is already there. I personally think I have go back to still open myself up to understand, because I leap forward, because we're all doing this. I leap forward in time and space into a future part of me that already transcended, and that already understood that effortlessness. It is the most amazing feeling in the world, where you're at rest, knowing that you're supported and that everything that you need is already provided. Now, I know the gratitude that I was bringing forth for me and for having understood all of this so far helped me out quite a bit to get to that space. But Kuan Yin was key to telling me that basically what would happen if there are no desires at all. Because in Dharmata, which is the state of the sublime state of enlightenment, there are no desires. There are no attachments. You have to become empty. But for the physical work that's on earth, I mean, I could stay in that state of being empty, and I could go into ascendance and ascend and go into another realm. But since my purpose is to manifest a bridge that will take not only myself, I could leave the planet and go there and that's it, I'm done. But since my purpose is to manifest a bridge to help the rest of humanity travel to that place, I still need to figure out where my receiver is. You see what I'm saying, Janice?
Your state of being supported, where everything is provided, is dependent on you not having a desire, and therefore your destiny is unfulfilled because it requires desire.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Uh, so that space that you've spoken about in the past, this white kind of blank
Yeah.
space of infinite potential,
Yeah.
where there is nothing that exists
Yeah.
except that, is similar in
Yes.
in
Yes. That's the effortlessness. Well, that state, there's so many different high emotions around there. One of the things I experience in there a lot of time is just rest and complete stillness. Experiencing effortlessness in that space is a new thing for me, but it's still that space. It's that kind of, it's dharmata, it's the state of enlightenment. Yes, I could go in that space and exist in there and everything is fine, but I would leave the planet and go into a higher dimension. But in the meantime, the purpose is not fulfilled. I was supposed to create a bridge. And for me to create the bridge, I have to connect to the desire to receive. I have to remove the shame. In other words, if I were to do this, I would ascend, but I would not ascend in all my bodies because I would leave some work behind I didn't do.
Well, it's clear for you because you have an understanding of what your destiny is, what your um, dharma is.
Yes.
Those of us who, at this point in life, not quite sure, must assume that there is something yet to be revealed, or else we would fly off the planet, I suppose, if there was nothing left.
Yes, yes. And it's kind of like what's the way to describe this? I think sometimes one's purpose can, sometimes you play what so-called is an important role because each one of us is a puzzle piece. Each one of us does something slightly different. And there are times, for example, when I go sit in the park to do meditation and I go to a specific bench, I don't know why Spirit is asking me to go sit there, not there. A lot of time I sit in one location and Spirit guide me, go sit. And there are people next to me, and I know a lot of time by me sitting in their proximity, they need to get something from my energy because I go into deep meditation when I go there. So for whatever reason, I have to change position. And again, if you listen to God, sometimes, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes the purpose is not necessarily a laid out plan because Gaiaville did not come to me as a laid out plan. It took me over 20 years to articulate it. I had a vision and it was a flash. And it took me 2 years after the flash to articulate it. And it took, it was, what's her name, who helped me out because she was trying to, in her profession, she helped people manifest business plan and create business. I met with her every 2 weeks for 2 years before I finally understood the vision I had. And it flushed it out into what Gaiaville is. A lot of time, it's not.
Was it Karen?
Corinne, yes. It's not a detailed plan. It's just a knowing in your heart that you're supposed to do. Let's say, for example, in your case, it's singing. Okay? And this is what you're supposed to do. In somebody else's case, I have another friend of mine who's a fine artist. For him, it's painting. And when he paints, he completely, if you see him painting, it's a holy experience. I've known him since I was in college. I remember him when I was going to Colombia. when he has the canvas and his entire body, hand goes in, it's just, it's holy.
Mm. Beautiful.
And when he's done, he's completely exhausted.
Mm.
And he sits there like relieved that he released something from his soul.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose doesn't have to be something huge or immense or something big. It could be something that simple.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something earth-shattering that I'm supposed to, go on top of this mountain and grab a big sword out of this, pull Excalibur out of a rock. It doesn't have to be something that big.
Mm-hmm.
It can be something quite simple.
Yeah.
And when you know this, for example, that the gift that I have, like Kelvin's gift, is that he the drawing, the stuff that he does, and everyone, when you look at the canvas, you're like, oh my God, you got transported into something else. And depending on what he's channeling, sometimes some of his painting. There's this one painting that he did. I'm afraid of the painting.
Mm.
Because the energy that he brought, whatever, it's a female figure. She terrifies me.
Mm.
He was channeling something that was emotionally difficult. And when he was done for a month and a half, he couldn't draw anything.
Mm.
It's not all about joy, joy, joy. It's a state of consciousness he was capturing, and he captured it. You can think of it as the shadow, but he captured it. That canvas scares me. But I have two of his artwork. I have actually more than two. I have one upstate, three of them. And when when Calvin, when he's doing his artwork again, it's a holy experience. Him and he's in Miami, and we were talking on the phone recently, and he was talking about the fact he has some health issues, and because of that, he hasn't drawn in a while and all that, and how he missed it and all that. And then finally, he called me the other day to tell me, I finally finished this painting that I wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. I'm so happy. I'm happy for you, Pierre. This is the only thing I know how to do. I said, I know. You don't have to tell me. And we are so connected because he used to draw only and paint only in black and white. He was scared of color. Because he said it's too powerful. I don't know if my body can handle it, because he becomes the work.
Yep.
And I remember I bought him his first acrylic set. I bought it for him. I gifted it to him.
Mm.
He's like, Pierre, I don't know if I can do this, blah, blah, blah. I said, try.
Mm.
And I would sit with him and watch him do this. Or at least begin working on the canvas, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes it would take him days to do. So in the worry not so much about the purpose, but more about your capacity. Connect. If you feel somehow your receiver is disconnected to you in some ways, you need to restore the balance, which is what I'm doing. Although I had the blessing for a day and a half of connecting to effortlessness. And I didn't know what it was. I felt it, and I remember feeling it before, and then I heard very clearly in my body, effortlessness. And when I was in that state, every time I tried to do a practice of some kind, I was told over and over again, you're already there. You don't need to exert any more effort. You're already there. So there's a part of me, an aspect of me, because no time and space, that already exists in a state where the shame is removed. But since my purpose is to create the bridge, I need to connect now on earth, in this world, in this reality 3D, to restoring the receiver so that I can walk into the effortlessness and the shameless body that exists in me or outside of me in the future. Did that help?
Oh, my, yes, very much so. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, again, this is adult conversation. This is an adult class. Because to a novice, if you were to talk like this, they would think you're cuckoo. But since we're doing this deep work and we've been doing it for a while, it's for us to, and I'm sharing this with such vulnerability to you, it's for you to apply some of these principles to your life and figure out a way in which you can, to a degree or another, understand where your giver is and where your receiver is, and create the balance. And for that matter, where is the shame? Where is the shame? Is the shame in the giver or is it in the receiver? Because I've met people in this life, and here is the crazy thing. I forgot, but I'm so happy I remember this, because there were so many things that happened, and this happened over the last 3 months. Because I removed from myself my desire to receive, I tried to push it back. I kept on meeting in the past 5 years people who had the most capacity to receive that I've ever met. I thought they were entitled, they were selfish, they were self-involved, to almost a degree of being narcissist. In other words, it was the universe showing me externally, you need to take this spot and bring it back inside of you. Because the outside is within. The way out is within. What you're experiencing in the outside, and the more you're like, oh my God, this person is low vibration, blah, blah, blah. And the more you keep meeting people that are like that, it's the more the universe is telling you it's inside of you. You somehow disconnected. There's a part of this that exists in you. You disconnected so much of that part, you have to figure out a way to bring it inside of you. I hope this is making sense.
A lot to think about.
All right, everyone. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll do a closing meditation. 5 minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your mind and your heart sync with each other. Realize that you can perceive 360 degrees. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And notice what you noticed. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. I call forth the Buddha Kuan Yin. And I ask the Mother of Mercy and Compassion to expand our ability to listen. Listen as if the more than 50 trillion cells in your body had ears. Notice what you noticed. Listen and try to hear or find a place where your desire to receive may exist. Please forgive me for having minimized, excluded, rejected your role, your purpose, and your importance in my life. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. I ask myself for forgiveness for having rejected such a fundamental pillar in my life. I am not perfect. I am flawed, human, vulnerable. Please forgive me. For my brokenness. I apologize profoundly to the receiver. And I am now grateful for your existence, your role, your importance, your significance, and your power in my life. beloved Kuan Yin. Take me into the Dharmata of enlightenment, and make me understand that forms are empty, and that all desires, even the desire to receive and to give, ultimately dissolved into rest and emptiness. But that emptiness is not a vacuum of nothing. Rather, it is a rest and stillness. Filled with endless possibilities and solution set. Take me into effortlessness, transcendence, instantaneous, spontaneous, and miraculous healing. May all desires, conscious, unconscious, subconscious, achieve the transcendence of emptiness. In my entire consciousness. Embodies move into enlightenment holistically. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Hosanna into the highest. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Wow, Pierre, that was so remarkable. I just have to report that my receiver was not in my body, but 10 feet outside my body at the start of the meditation. At the end, it's now in my body.
Wow, Janice, this is phenomenal.
Isn't that something? Oh, thank you.
Wow, this is the meditation. I'm going to isolate it. I'll send it to all of you. You need to repeat this multiple times because it needs to, this is something that you need to, we all need to connect to that part of us.
Hmm.
This is a critical, it's like trying to remove one of your legs. It makes no sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I want to thank all of you for listening to me tonight. And if you're listening to us on Patreon, thank you for your subscription and your support. If you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and I will talk to you next week. Deep love, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Love you.
Bye.